Wow. Well, I guess the only other thing I'll say here is that when you think about it, and Quest, again, this is coming back to you, but and also talking about
Yeah.
this for the rest of the dads out there, you talked about this, like the path back into your son's lives. It didn't happen through the courtroom. It
Right.
happened through conversation. And you said that a little bit earlier. I want to come back to that because I think that's a really important point. And it's something I think that you've been able to prove through your relationship with your sons. But you got to understand that conversation requires something that the system doesn't really teach us as Black men, and that's how to be
Hmm.
vulnerable with ourselves. That's how to be vulnerable with the mother of our children. When the world is telling
Yes.
you all or telling us we got to be strong, we need to be silent. And a lot of times it's also telling us we need to be gone.
If you're not in a place where you have like the dopest co-parent in the world, I hear that a lot of people do not. You have to be able to operate in a space where, okay, the pickup and drop off is here. What else do we need to discuss? Here's the schedule for their soccer season, okay?
Right.
Like, here it is. And there's no going in and out with somebody that is not consistent as a co-parent.
Right.
A consistent good co-parent, we're not talking about that person. We're talking about somebody who can take your energy, shift it around. That's a very challenging thing.
Very.
And so all that you can do is have your structure, have your organization, but you have to limit their access to you. You have to limit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad that we got a chance to look at that B-roll, because now I really want to get into like the turnaround, because I know a lot of people are like, well, what happened? You know what I'm saying? I didn't get back
I'm
into my
interested.
son's lives through the courts, yo. I got back through the conversation with them. I got back through, getting my situation together with their mothers. I got back by being accountable. I got back by understanding that what I was doing was stupid. I got back by understanding that I had an obligation. I got back because not of another man or woman particularly saying to me that I needed to do a certain thing, but me understanding that I needed to follow through on the commitment that not only I made to my sons, but I made to their mothers. That I made to
Wow.
their mothers.
It's a big moment, man.
I had to make them feel safe enough to trust me again with my own sons. And that's a big deal, And that
Yeah.
meant that I had to be honest about why I left in the first place. I had to actually face those facts. I had to listen to my oldest son tell me how he personally felt about me, not only in the letter, but in his conversation with me, which rocked my life. It rocked my entire world. It was one of the things that I feel was a catalyst for me understanding that I needed to turn this thing around, and to turn it around for myself. Who am I? Who am I to sit here and allow myself to look like somebody that was never there in my life the whole time, when I know that I want to be in my son's lives?
Right.
I understood that there was issues with child support. I understood all of that. You know what I'm saying? But I was working with my sons to work through like that whole situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
when it came down to it, I feel like that was a point that I needed to really step into. I needed to step into why I wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
I needed to understand what that really, looked like in some way. I needed to be more emotional about being in my son's lives. I needed to understand for myself that I wanted someone to be there for me like that. And that is part of what took me back. That, and the fact that I love my sons with everything that I am, that I really wanted them to see that. And so me working with my sons to work through all of our issues, one issue at a time, focusing on them and not being selfish and careless with my emotions, my time, and my feelings. That's what I had to do to break through where I was and get to a point where we are better.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
It's a
I can't
powerful
help but
testimony, man.
yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful, man. Kudos to you, man. Hats off to you, man. In a lot of ways, because I think a
Appreciate
lot of
you.
men don't reach that point, or they choose to ignore it, and the escapism happens.
It's tough.
It
It's
is
tough.
tough, man.
You on a whole different lifestyle. But Jay, you thinking about these kids every day. Like what?
Right.
You're
Right.
thinking of, and if you're not thinking about your kids, I don't know. I just don't
Mm.
understand that. I was thinking
Right.
about my kids every day. Every day. Who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
am I?
Yeah.
Who am
Yeah.
I to not
Yeah.
have a conversation with you and I'm thinking about you every day? Who am
Mhm.
Yeah.
I? And that had to
Wow.
change, bro. Like that had
Yeah.
Yeah.
to change. That had to change. I love my sons. Like people, I don't know if you like you got to understand that.
Yeah.
Well, I
They
think
look
that,
like me. You
yeah,
know what I'm
man.
saying? At the end of the day, you
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't they look
Yeah.
like
There's
they
no
look like
denying.
me. I look
Yeah.
at them now and I see the things that they do. Come on. Come
I
on.
I wish there was an opportunity, and maybe this is something that we can do on another episode, but to really dig deeper into, because we just on the surface. We're not
Mhm.
talking. We're just on the surface, and we're just getting to the point where we're talking about the healing that's required to even just
Yes.
re-engage with your son or your daughter. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's layers in here as well that are the co-parenting wounds that happen. Like, okay, in order for you to even re-engage because you had to disengage, how do you re-engage with the person that you separated from that created the son or the daughter? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
work that has to happen
You
in
right.
that area too before you can even really work in this area. So it's like, dang, you gotta heal to first re-engage with this person that you really may not like
Man,
anymore,
do you?
right?
Mhm.
Just so that
Mhm.
you can get to the person that you're trying to get to. It's like a chess game. Like, okay,
Sure.
Mm.
I gotta do what I gotta do to make sure this is cool so that this can even get to a room temperature.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I think
That's a lot, man.
there's a lot in there, man, that we don't talk about, just the co-parenting elements that have to happen for the man and the woman just to make sure that
Right.
they can pour into the child so the child has a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has an
Just so the child
opportunity.
has a
But
chance.
not just the child having the opportunity, but they're not gonna see it if you and that and the other other parent are always giving off this,
Mm.
damage, always giving off
Yeah.
Yeah,
this trauma, always giving off.
yeah,
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And
man.
like,
I
and
think
how often do we wind
yeah,
up seeing that too? You know, where you've got co-parents in there and they're so warring at one another that
Yeah.
inevitably they wind up putting that on the kid, you know? And again, I see
Come
that kind of
on.
thing happen a lot where there'll be, the mom or the dad. Even with me, they're talking pretty toxically about their former mate, or the mother or
yeah,
the father of their child, the way they talk to me about it. And then the kid will come in and the kid will start talking about what they hear at home. And it's umpteen billion times beyond what it is that I hear. And again, as an educator, there's always a part of me that's looking at it like, how do we try to ensure that the children are being put first?
Come
Because that's
on.
not always something I've seen divorcing parents share. One may want to do it, the
Mm,
other may not, but you both got to be on that same page. And just making
mm,
sure that the child doesn't see themselves as the issue or the reason behind why the split up happened. And so to do that, I think is fundamentally important for that child so that they come out of this as healthy and as whole as they
that's
possibly
right.
can.
Yeah, yeah.
Adults can drift apart. Like that's a part of life and it happens. But sometimes you also see too where people decide that they're going to stay together for the kid. That can be good at times, but sometimes it's also a road to nowhere. So
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
nowhere.
takes to
Yeah,
be in the best interest of the child that's the non-negotiable to me. And you just
You
have to
know,
be nimble enough to figure out what works best.
You got to. You got to. I'm gonna tell you the truth. It was a hard road back with both of my sons' moms, but it was a road back. We went on it. We
Mhm.
went through it. We continue to go through it even now. It's not perfect. It
Mm,
won't be, but it's a blessing. God truly took us through moments here. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? And when I tell you moments, like moments where I wasn't communicating effectively, I wasn't listening to what was being said, and probably on the other side too at some point, but more over me, myself,
mm,
not
mm.
communicating well. You know what I'm saying? But we started. We
Yeah.
started communicating well, not just from my
Mhm.
healing, but from the healing of the situation. right?
Mm.
Yeah.
We started listening.
That's good,
We
Q. That's
also
good. That's
allow for
that good.
God to take over, right? You
Come
know,
on.
Ooh,
you
ooh,
gotta let God step in. You gotta let God step
oof.
in, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And kind of take over that. So through that, through the love, and through myself being accountable, through us all being accountable, we got a chance to get to a point where the conversation went past us because we
Mm.
went through it and directly to the kids so
Yeah.
that we could start having the conversation now that leads us back to healing. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Man.
And
Mm.
that's the shift right there. It's not
Yeah.
about what we want anymore. It's about what they need. And
Well,
I
I
want
think
to make sure that my children have everything that they need.
I love
Mhm.
that, man. I love that.
Wow.
I think what you recognize and what you're sharing is when we hear the word child support, it's not just monetary. Like,
Yeah.
Correct.
child support means support. Like, black men, I think we
Mhm.
just use it like, well, I'm paying child support, so I'm cool. Like, but there's a lot of black
Come
Mhm.
brothers out
on.
there paying child support that have nothing else to do with their child to really support them. Like, the
Mm.
child should
That's
not
right.
the child should not have to experience the pain between the mother and the father. Like, and
Mm. Yeah.
oftentimes the children are receiving that pain because the child support is not there. I hope that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, we just
Yeah.
gonna weaponize. I'm gonna talk about your daddy ain't crap, your mama ain't this and that, and then
Mhm.
they telling this to the child, and the child is having to receive all that, and now all of a sudden the child
Mm.
is confused. Like, well, okay, how am I
Mm.
supposed to show up when I'm
Yeah.
around my dad? How am I supposed to show up when I'm around my mom? They both telling me about their pain. I'm internalizing it as a child.
Yeah.
Now that's impacting. I'm confused. And I
Mm.
think
Yeah.
Mm.
we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
Yeah.
about that when we talk about child support. Like, I want my
Come on.
child
I
Yeah.
to
hear
make
you. I hear you.
you know what I mean? So I think that's something that I would
Yeah.
encourage our men to not do. Like, don't let the
Mm.
children
Mm.
be the ones receiving the pain because mommy and daddy can't get along. I think kids
Yeah.
Yeah.
deserve to find freedom and love from both parents so they can be good
Mm.
parents to their children. And I think
Yeah.
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 what we're
Yeah. Yeah.
seeing is that generationally, our exit wounds are being passed on to our children. And so
Mm.
we never really know what a good role model is for a black mom and a black father to
Mm.
co-parent. I'm not even talking about
Yeah.
marriage. I'm talking about what's a good role model for co-parenting. We ain't got a lot of that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone do we
Mm-hmm.
have a lot
Mm.
of role models for healthy marriage. So I think stop
Oof.
looking at the problem, just start looking at you and yourself and what healing
Mm.
can
Mm-hmm.
provide so that you're not passing it on.
Jeez,
Mm-hmm.
man. And
Mm-hmm.
here's, I mean, I love what I just heard you say right there. And I would say, here's another part of that reframe. And this gets at what you were talking about a little bit earlier, Jay, with black men in the court system and how things go. Like mothers do win primary custody nearly 8 out of every 10 times.
Yeah,
But at the
yeah,
same time, 90% of the custody cases never even go that far. Like they never even go to trial, meaning that most
Yeah.
fathers will agree to the arrangement before they even see a judge. Okay. So then
Yeah.
the question isn't really whether the court is biased because we know that it is. The question is more, are black men, are we even showing up to that fight? And if
Come
we're
on.
not, is it because the system kind of beat us down before we even walked into the fight? Or is it because of the debt? Is it because of the shame and or maybe even the silence of the whole thing already won?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't the father that I felt like you know, I didn't want to pay child support or I wasn't trying to escape the obligation from, or the consideration of supporting my child. It was definitely more of me mentally thinking to myself, what am I doing here? When you think about it, you're in a state where you're trying to figure out how you want to show up and support, but you don't think like just listen. Just listen to how you need to. Just think about
Mm,
how you wanted to be supported. And that may have been able to be a more of a factor here. Like
mm,
I let that child support become my whole relationship in some ways, and I should not have done that. And
mm,
and that's what the system does. It reduces you in some ways to a payment. Like I think of
mm,
it where,
mm,
you think about fathers trying to, just, oh, I'm not going to get another job because I need some money too. You know what I'm saying? And really what they're not really thinking about is just from the standpoint of the support like Jay was talking about, right? Like, children of involved fathers, regardless of living arrangements or not, are 43% more likely to earn A's, 33% more likely to repeat a grade. They are less likely, that is, to repeat a grade. Like think about that. And 80% less likely to end up in jail. So what we're saying here is, with these involved fathers, just being involved, Jay, like you were talking about, supporting that way, you know what I'm saying? It helps to encourage the kids in a lot of way. I got to give big ups to Kenny, who is my son's, stepfather, father.
That's
Okay.
what's up,
I
bro.
got
I
to
was
give
gonna
him,
ask you
I
that
got to give
question.
him,
Yeah.
I got to give him props, because my son was really great in a lot of areas. But would he have been? I think from his mother, yes, she had great structure and continues to have great structure. But I do see the structure that this man brought also into his life.
Wow. Wow.
You see
Yeah.
what I'm
Good for you
saying?
for being able to
Yeah.
appreciate that,
You
man.
see,
That's
Like
what's
you
up.
that
you
means a
have
lot.
to, you have to, because we still a village. We
I
still a
Mm.
I I
village.
I
And
can't
it's
help
still
And
but
I
your
think that's
child.
where it's
yeah.
it's still my child. It's
Right.
right.
And you want to see the
So
best. Yeah.
come on, now you got
Yeah.
two dads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look at
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
youngest son. He didn't have that same faction. He didn't have that same coming upbringing where somebody else stable at that point was in his. I was fighting to get back in his life. So when I fought and I got back in his life, I became that role model that I should have been in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so now where he understands where I was with his older brother, he also understands the dynamic that's different between them two, and how I had to catapult my life into his life at the time that it was, because if not, he definitely would have went a different way, possibly.
Wow.
Now, don't
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
wrong. He had his grandfather. He had, his uncles that, the husbands of his aunts, right? That were good role models, but he wasn't around them a lot. He wasn't
Yeah.
around them as much, probably in some ways, as I possibly was. But what I'm simply saying there is that your kids don't need you to win in court. They need you to show up in their life.
Yeah.
They need you to show up.
That's it. That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's
I
it.
think it's
Wow.
I think it's kind of interesting that we're having this conversation now as we talk about 40 and 50s, because I think that's the age when hopefully you have started some healing or you're looking at it. Because I feel like black men, I don't know, Quest, maybe you couldn't have even received this conversation 20 years ago.
Come
You know,
on,
like,
come on.
because you were so caught up in it. You were caught up in all the things that you were trying to unravel. You wasn't ready to have this discussion, or maybe if you were, it wasn't going to hit like it hit now. And so I feel like this is a very great conversation to have for black men that are doing a couple of things. Like you mentioned, CJ, that are going through, children are going to college. You know, what does child support look like post leaving the home, right? Like,
Yeah.
also, you know, and I think about my grandparents, like the role that grandfathers play in the whole mix of things. Like, I value him so much more now. Like, nothing, don't get me wrong. I love my dad, and I'm evolving in that relationship with him now, but it allows me to appreciate what my grandfather did for me because my father was not there. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
black men, don't ever underestimate the role that you may have to play. Like, all of it is centered around the evolution of your healing. Even if you're not the biological father, you could be a surrogate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be
Yeah.
someone that's helping a black male on a whole different level, and they didn't even come from your seed, right? So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
are
Yeah.
you evolving so that you can be there for that black male, mentoring, whatever the case may be? Just want you to think
Yeah.
about those things. Like, how do you hold all of this to be true for yourself? You know, so those are the
Yeah.
things that come to
Yeah.
mind, man.
Well,
You
there's
know,
another question.
before
Go
you
ahead,
get
man.
in
Go ahead,
here,
Quest.
CJ, I just want to say, today is my grandfather's birthday, and Jay,
Hey.
that really
Hallelujah.
touched me,
Happy
because
birthday.
when
Yeah,
I think about your journey and I think about mine, that's where there's a parallel. You know, my
Mm.
grandfather raising me, and to what you're saying, like there's honor in that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
There's
Mhm.
so much honor in that. There's
Honor,
so
I
much,
love that.
yeah.
and I can't help to be emotional right now because
Right.
like
Mm.
I look back at him, I look back at how he taught me, I look back at everything he taught me, and I look at where I was imperfect, where I was broken, where I was not myself. And
Mm.
to be able, you know, to be able to have God there, to be able to
Mm.
step with the right intentions and get back to a place where I can handle my kids.
Dang, dang.
Mm.
Come on, man.
I love that for you, man. Yeah,
Mm.
Come
Come
I
on,
on,
love that.
man.
man.
I love that.
Wow.
I gotta thank my grandfather. Like he never gave up on us.
Mm.
And he
Mhm,
never gave it
mhm,
wasn't his family. This was a
mhm.
man who came into a family just
Mm.
like Kenny did, just like who I was talking about.
Wow.
My son's
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
stepfather,
yeah.
just like
Mm.
he did.
Mm.
Mm.
Okay?
Wow.
And
Wow.
he came in and he showed me everything that I needed,
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And like I said, for me to fall off that and to turn around and say, you know what? Nah, you can't do that. You got to be better than
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
grateful of him. I'm grateful to God. Jay,
Yeah.
thank you for that, man.
Right,
I
man.
just
Yeah.
had to say that, Chris. I just had to say
Yeah.
that,
No,
man.
no, no. I'm glad you said
Yeah,
that, man. I really
man.
am. And there are a couple places too. Like one, obviously, your willingness to share this with us is
Yeah.
real, right? And that's part of this
Yeah,
healing
man.
space that we want to provide for these men in our age bracket for sure. I also
Right.
want to give you credit for forgiving yourself. Because
Mm.
there's no way when we talk about the healing that had to take place for you to then start to show up in the lives of your boys the way you
Mm,
needed
mm,
to.
mm,
There's
mm,
an
mm.
element of healing that needed to take place so that you could be vulnerable to them in the way you needed to. So again, I want to give you credit for that. Give it
Yeah,
to God,
man.
give it to family and other support systems,
Appreciate
whatever.
you.
But you did
Appreciate
that.
you.
You did that. And a lot of us sometimes we know how this is. We can get stubborn. We chose a position
Yeah.
on something. We just gonna be that way because we get to be that way.
That's
And
right.
I love that you were able to come out of that and realize what you needed to do in order to put them first. And then Jay, I want to come to you for a second too,
Yeah.
because I'm listening to Quest talk about Kenny, as I'm listening to both of you all talk about your grandfathers. For me, it was less a grandfather than it was a grandmother, but it was still like having this person. But I'm interested
Mhm.
for you, Jay, as someone who has now stepped into a relationship where you can become the Kenny to other
Yeah,
children. You
yeah.
can become your grandfather, Quest grandfather to some other kids who have now come into your life. I'd love to hear you share about what watching your grandfather has given you to be able to do this the right way in their life.
Yeah, man. It means so much because he is the model
Mm.
Yeah.
in his imperfect perfection. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do I
Yeah.
take the things that he instilled in me that I think were perfect? And then how do I work on those things that weren't perfect so that I make sure that I instill them into my seed, to my young daughter, you know what I mean, that I'm
Mm.
raising, co-parenting now to give her those things that her father, her biological father ain't giving her. You know what I mean? So it
Mm.
like it just hits so much more for me now
Yeah.
Mhm,
because I
mhm.
Yep.
realize the impact that I'm having on this young woman, you know, who will in
Mm.
essence carry
Mhm.
my seed, right? So
Mm.
it's I'm thankful, grateful, humble, and all the same and all the way. But then I'm also like
Mm.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
accountability is on 10 for me. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
gotta lead with
Yeah.
intention and I gotta make sure that I lead with impact too.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess the only other thing I'll say here is that when you think about it, and Quest, again, this is coming back to you, but and also talking about
Yeah.
this for the rest of the dads out there, you talked about this like the path back into your son's lives. It didn't happen through the courtroom. It
Right.
happened through conversation. And you said that a little bit earlier. I want to come back to that because I think that's a really important point. And it's something I think that you've been able to prove through your relationship with your sons. But you got to understand that conversation requires something that the system doesn't really teach us as Black men, and that's how to be
Mhm.
vulnerable with ourselves. That's how to be vulnerable with the mother of our children. When the world is telling
Yes.
you all or telling us we got to be strong, we need to be silent. And a lot of times it's also telling us we need to be gone.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're right.
I think,
Mm.
man, I honestly do believe that co-parenting can work if both individuals are working on their healing and they recognize
Mhm,
Mm-hmm.
this
mhm,
ain't about the other person. Like this ain't about
mhm.
me ripping this dude's pockets wide open where he can't even walk
Mm,
outside. Like if you're
yeah.
healing and you're evolving, you recognize that in order to be an impactful parent, you got to show up whole. And I know
Mhm, mhm.
you're not gonna
Mhm.
be fully whole because mommy and daddy ain't together. But if either one of them is not showing up whole, man, the child is the one that is impacted the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah, yeah,
definitely do
yeah.
wind up paying a price for sure. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
now I know we're into it. We got to a lot of stuff, but as we always like to do, there's always a verdict that comes in here. We want to wind up giving some kind of takeaways for our viewers who are out here. So if you are in this situation, this co-parenting kind of situation, one of the things that comes to mind, I am married to a former attorney who kind of talks about this and she shares this with friends as well, but it's document everything. Document
Yeah.
absolutely everything and never agree to any kind of arrangement if you feel like there's pressure there, okay? Because you can wind up
Yeah.
signing away some rights that you're never going to be able to recover. So the other thing that goes along with that, though, is know your state's custody presumption. All right, know
Yeah.
what that is
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
can be a
that's
little bit
good.
different depending on where you are. Of course, you might even be able to talk to that. And then
Mhm.
also remember, again, and this comes back to what we were just discussing, that your child doesn't need you all to win in court. Your child needs you to show up at their school. Your child needs
Right.
that kind of child support that Jay was talking about, the child support that goes beyond financial. Like that's the stuff that actually really means the most. And the
Mhm,
CDC data, we
mhm.
gave up some of that a little bit more. That proves that that's actually what Black fathers are doing, regardless of what you hear out there and the different myths that are out there about whether or not we're showing up. The CDC data right now is proving that we actually do. All right, so don't let the
Yeah,
system make you all forget that.
yeah,
That's so good. I, on top of
yeah.
that, I think, my through line still remains the same is heal. You know,
Mm,
Mhm.
this point in our
yeah.
lives, in our 40s and 50s, the thing that should come to mind is healing. How can you heal so that you can
Mhm.
co-parent in a way that comes from, abundance and not what you've lost, not from a place of fear or
Mm,
Mhm,
scarcity,
mhm,
because that comes
mhm.
and your children can feel that too. So, as a black man, how are you showing up? Are you showing up whole? What can you do to make
mm,
sure that you
Mhm.
do that outside of just the financial that's impacting? And
Yeah.
so I just want to make sure that you focus on that. How do we transition from a fear mentality to one of abundance, not one of
mm,
survival? So that would be
mm.
Yeah,
my
yeah. And
Like that.
And you know what, y'all? I lost years with my sons because I let my own foolishness, my own insecurities, the lying, the
Mm,
cheating, the inability to be accountable,
mm,
it led everything to this story right here, right? That path back, it wasn't a legal situation. It
mm,
was a relation situation. I needed to relate. I had to make their mothers feel safe. I had to
mm,
be honest about why I left. I had to lead my sons, when they were ready.
mhm,
To
Mm,
get to that point with them was a lot. And if you are out here and you're thinking to yourself that owing money and thinking that's the same as fatherhood
mm,
is not, yo. Is not. Is not. That check is the ground floor. Your
mm,
yeah.
presence is the ceiling. Don't you
mm,
confuse the two, fellas. Don't do
mm.
that.
That's
Man,
good.
I think that's the perfect way to wind up taking us out, y'all. So that's the 40/50
Yeah.
Social Club for this week. If this conversation hit you, share it. Share it with a friend. Share it with a man who you know that needs to hit, that needs to hear this. And at the same time, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe. Again, it means more to us than we can ever even express. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace and blessings.